So in this video, we're going to talk about the Knicks 9-man rotation and why that's the key to us making it to a higher seed in the playoffs. Let's talk about it. Let's go Knicks. So welcome to the channel. I am the Objective Fan. Here we have great conversations about the Knicks, and today we're going to be talking about the 9-man rotation. When I watch the games, I take great notes, and one of the things I noticed was that when Tibbs went to the 9-man rotation, it seemed as if things clicked. During that stretch, I remember we went on that 8-game winning streak. And the first reason is we played well. Like I said, we went on a big 8-game winning streak. I'm going to tell you exactly. I got my Knicks notes right here. This was during the stretch December 4th all the way to the 18th. Within that stretch, that's when he switched over to the 9-man rotation, and we had a lot of success. If you want to know our exact record is we're 23-14 since we switched to rotation. Before that, we were 10-13. Now, one of the things you got to understand with Coach Tibbs is that historically he has always had a shorter rotation. I think in Chicago he even played 8 guys. Hope he doesn't do that in New York. I think the 9-man rotation is perfect for this team. On a team like the Knicks, when we're so deep, we have a lot of depth. We got guys that are not playing in the rotation that make multitudes of millions of dollars that probably would be starters on other teams. And that's why a lot of our players during the deadline were highly coveted. The second reason is it's easy to have roles. When you know when you're going to come in the game, how long you're more likely going to play for, right? It makes the team function a lot better. Now you can utilize a player for their strengths, right? Players don't have to look over their shoulder. I remember when Quickley first came into the league and, he was getting minutes because we didn't really know how effective he was going to be because he was a late first-round pick. But once he started to perform and produce, right, he started getting time. And then I remember Quickley would look over his shoulder because, that was a team when we had Morris and all those guys. There was a lot of veterans on that team. So there wasn't a lot of opportunities for a younger guy to get time and minutes. And then with that 9-man rotation, it's kind of like a plug-and-play system where you can literally just plug a guy in and you don't really lose any steam from the momentum that the team created and their success in the game, right? Another reason is you get the most out of your core players. So when you have these roles defined, 9-man rotation, we know if you're not in the rotation, you're not playing tonight, so it's not a mystery unless there's an injury, right? But so you get the more out of your core players, right? So if you have a starter, right, for example, that's playing well, one of the things with the 9-man rotation, 8-man rotation is you have multiple starters on the floor for most of the game, so that way you keep your effectiveness going forward. You don't have to sacrifice it versus when you have 5 guys or 6 guys coming in off the bench. Now that kind of kills the momentum because typically the guys that come off the bench are not as talented as the starters, right? So you can play your starters to their strengths. So if you got a guy like Grimes, if he's having a great game, he might play a whole quarter. If he's not, you can cut him and bring in a guy like Quickley that's going to give you production. I'm going to talk more about Quickley a little later, right? Another example would be Randall. In the fourth quarter, see, Randall is known for having big first quarters, right? Where his production is crazy, right? So, but when he gets to the fourth, he's typically gassed out. Tibbs has done a better job with that, but typically he's gassed when he gets. So now, if Obi is playing well, right, and you give Obi moments to shine, so instead of bringing Randall in with 9 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, maybe you bring him in at 5:30. So now Randall could go hard for that last 5 to 6 minutes to get the most out of his production. So the 9-man rotation brought more out of your core. Another thing I hinted to was keeping a starter on the floor, right? The newest wrinkle since the trade deadline, since they got Josh Hart, I'll talk more about him a little later. If you're feeling the video up to this point, definitely take the opportunity to give it a like, subscribe to the channel. It's a very small channel, but we're going to grow fast. And you want to stay with us on this journey, so make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell icon. So like I was saying, keeping a starter on the floor. Jalen Brunson, right? The latest wrinkle since adding Josh Hart was Brunson is actually playing the whole first quarter. That adjustment, I think, is going to really work wonders for us because what happens is Quickley is so dynamic, and I'm going to talk about him next, where Quickley can be the off guard and the main guard. But if you can get Brunson's production for a whole 10 to 12 minutes, that's going to propel your team going into the second quarter on a higher note because Brunson is probably definitely our most efficient player on the team. And I love Randall. Randall's our two-time All-Star, but Brunson is the guy who is the guy that makes it going. He keeps us going. So keeping him on the floor for the first quarter and the third quarter is going to work wonders, especially when he's playing with his boy Josh Hart. Another thing too, RJ Barrett, who is our third best player on the team. I know he's going to get a lot of flack. Let me just say this. I am the objective fan. So I will call out our players when they're not playing well, but I'm supporting our players. I cheer for all of our players. I want all of our players to do well because if they don't do well, we don't do well. So if RJ's having a bad game, you pull him out early in the first quarter. Sit him, talk to him, let him get his confidence up. But if he's playing well, a lot of times his play improves in the second quarter because he becomes the go-to guy with Quickley. Those two kind of run the show, run the offense, try to make plays off pick and rolls and do things like that. So it also keeping a starter on the floor like a RJ, somebody who can attack and create offense and create opportunity for other people, and you put him with Quickley, it does wonders. Now, I want to talk about Quickley because Quickley is the guy who I'm most impressed with on this team. Besides Brunson, I think Brunson is, and of course Randall. He's the all-star of the team. Randall, you got to give him enough praise. But let me tell you something about IQ. Because Tibbs shortened the rotation, right, and featured IQ as his sixth man. I have a quote here. I'm gonna read from Yahoo. Quickley has reached. This was on February 8th, by the way. Quickley has reached double figures in 5 of his last 7 games. He played in Tuesday's win over the Magic. Okay, like I said, this was back in February 8th. But in the win over the Magic, he had 18 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, 4 3-point. He's filling up the stat sheet, man. 7 of 15 from the field, right? He's ranked safely within the top 150 and 9 cap per game value over the last 2 weeks. Now, I'm not a big fan of these advanced stats because you can blow them up, but it's just showing that he's been playing well, right? And it's well ahead of, like I said, the starters, Quentin Grimes, RJ Barrett. While Quickley isn't a starter, he's playing close to starters' minutes recently, averaging 30 minutes per game in the last 2 weeks during that span. And given the limited number of Knicks guards, Tibbs is willing to trust Quickley in the rotation. Now, that's not kind of true. We have a lot of guards. The 9-man rotation is what kind of like killed some of that noise because now you were able to plug and play a guy in with Quickley and not have to have him compete with other guys like Derrick Rose. So I think removing Fournier and Rose from the lineup, and of course Cam was also there. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about that later. But removing them for Rose from the lineup gave Quickley the ball because Rose was dominating the ball. So now Quickley has established that role as the main ball handler. So yeah, now when we talk about, like I hinted to, removing Cam and Fournier and Rose from the lineup, with Tibbs, and I always said this when the Knicks first acquired Tibbs, that, and one of the Facebook groups I'm in, I was in there for years and I had posts, and one of the things I used to always say is that Tibbs likes two-way players. If you can't play defense at a certain level, you're not going to be able to play for Tibbs. So Quickley has emerged into a guy that's somewhat of a two-way player, someone that you can rely on to at least cover his man, right? And Fournier is not that guy, and Rose isn't that guy, especially later on in the later stages of his career. So he basically, and then Cam kind of showed you he can play a little defense, but Cam is not known to be a defensive player. He's an offensive first type of guy. So by Tibbs removing those guys and plugging in guys like Grimes in the starting lineup and Quickley as your sixth man and Deuce McBride, who I really like, who's now, since the emergence of Josh Hart, probably will sit. I'm going to get into Josh Hart. He's probably going to be my last point. Removing those guys from the lineup cleared out a lot of that white noise, and now you know who's going to be in the game. The last point I'm going to talk about is Josh Hart. I'm going to talk about Randall and the continued success of the lineup. I mentioned Obi earlier. Randall can actually get rest within this 9-man rotation. Why? Because Josh Hart, if you're playing against a small team, he's somebody that could slide to the 4, right? Or if Obi, you can rock out with Obi, right? So Randall doesn't have to be burnt out. There's a shift that I noticed Tibbs has been making in the last couple of games where he has been Even if Randle plays the entire third quarter, he tries to get Randle out at that 10-minute mark. But if Randle so happens to play the entire third quarter, he brings him in later in the fourth, around that 6 to 5 minute mark in between there. So that way, when he comes in the game, he can give his full effort and not be gassed out. That's going to help him down the stretch into the playoffs be able to produce at that high all-star level. All you need is that last 5 minutes, because you're going to have Brunson for a good amount of the fourth. You're going to have Quickley out there, Josh Hart, RJ, Grimes. So those guys can give you a lot of production until your all-star comes in the game, right? But let me just tell you this. I think that Josh Hart was the most underrated player and piece that they received at the trade deadline. He's a plug-and-play guy. He's someone that literally came in and fit in from the start. I love the addition of Josh Hart. Big up to the Knicks front office staff for bringing him in. Fantastic addition. I think that he can shoot, he can play defense, he can rebound. Those are the things that we need. That's New York City basketball, man. This 9-man rotation brings me back to the 90s days. When you had those teams in the 90s with Oakley, Mason, Ewing, and they had a tight rotation. They played tough, they played hard. And I think, honestly, and I'm going to talk about more about this, I think that we definitely will make it to the second round. I will be doing a video on Chris Childs. Chris Childs says that he believes that the Knicks could make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. I'll be doing a video on that, so look out for that one next. But definitely, man, this is a new channel. I appreciate you for sticking to the end with me. You are a superstar. Make sure you hit that like button if you hadn't already. Make sure you subscribe if you hadn't already. I'm about to knock the mic over. Make sure you hit that bell icon so you get all your notifications, and share this with your friends, man. If you love New York Knicks basketball, I am your guy. I'm the Objective Fan. This is the Objective Knicks Fan YouTube channel, and we're going to rock out like that, man. Have a great day, and peace, and big up Kings County representatives.